I mean, as you look back at 2002, if you could go back and relive the year, what is the first thing you would change? Think about that right now. If you could go back and do one thing differently, got something in your mind? A lot of you, maybe the moment I said that, you already knew. You didn't even have to think about it. You think back to 2002 and there's maybe one incident, one thing you did where you just wish you could take it back. Others of you, as you thought about it, you realized maybe some patterns that developed over the year or some things you began to do and you just wish you had changed that. Or maybe you think of things that you did that wasted a lot of time over this last year that you wish you never got involved with. When I think about that question, there's no doubt what comes to my mind. It's obvious to me the stupidest thing I did last year. And to me, it was the fact that I just didn't pray enough. I look back at the year and I think about how proud I've been in just trying to make things happen by myself. And just work and make it happen and do it and not really take the time to sit down before God and pray about it and really beg Him to do it. And it's not like, oh, this is the first year I didn't pray enough, because I could probably say it every year. I just think that this is the first year that God has really revealed to me how stupid it was that I didn't pray. I mean, this is the first year where I just feel like I see so clearly, wow, that was really, really dumb. To do all these things and fight and strive and not spend the right amount of time praying and asking God and begging Him to do these things. I just think about how much more effective I could have been this year had I spent more time praying and asking God to do things through me. How much better my family would be, how much better the church would be, how much better so many things in my life would be. Not that any of them are bad, but it's like, God, I forgot to call upon the God of the universe. And as I say that, I also have to say that last year I probably prayed more than I have in any other year of my life. It's just that when you start praying, it's like addicting, isn't it? You start praying, you start seeing the answers, then you start going, man, why didn't I pray more? I mean, how many people, we wasted a lot of time last year. Well, all of us did, doing different things. How many people look back at last year and one of your regrets is, you know what? I look back at 2002 and I just feel like I prayed too much. I mean, were there even any weeks? Was there ever a week where you just thought, gosh, I spent just too much time? Or a day? Was there any day last year where you just thought you spent too much time before God? Too much time talking to Him? Because look, I can point to days and weeks where I spent too much time playing. I can point to weeks where I probably spent too much time sleeping, too much time working. Maybe weeks where I spent too much time worrying. Weeks where I spent too much money, ate too much food. Lots of weeks where I just go, you know what, I wasted a lot of time doing this. Maybe I watched too much television. I did this, I did that. Whatever it may have been. But I can't think of a single day where I look back and go, gosh, I shouldn't have prayed that much that day. I mean, I can look at a day in my life where I've regretted that. But my regrets are always, why didn't I pray more? Why didn't I come before the God of the universe? The passage that keeps hitting me is James 4. James chapter 4. There's a real simple phrase in this passage that has just been on my mind, especially this last week, as God has just shown me just how foolish it's been. In James chapter 4, starting in verse 1, he says, "What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You want something, but you don't get it. You kill and covet, but you cannot have what you want. You quarrel and you fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. And when you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. He says in this passage, he tells these people, he goes, you're all clawing and fighting, you're grasping, you're trying to attain all these different things, and you're fighting with one another, even killing each other to get it. You're longing for this stuff. And he goes, did you ever stop and think maybe you don't have it because you never asked God? And did it occur to you that maybe you asked God and you didn't get it because of your motives? See, a lot of times when we pray and we start asking God, if we really brought all of our desires before God, sometimes when we start asking for things, we realize, wow, why am I asking for that? What is my motive in wanting that? Is that something God would even be pleased with? But that other phrase that just kept hitting me, you don't have because you don't ask. It's so simple, it's so obvious, and yet how often is that true in our lives, where prayer is our last resort? We go to everything else, now we finally throw our hands up in the air. I can't do it. I guess I'll pray. Rather than recognizing that there's a God in control of everything. And why would I run around trying to accomplish everything by myself? One of my, I don't know if you guys have this toy at home. One of my youngest daughter, Mercy, her favorite toy, one of her favorites, is this. Do you guys have one of these? You guys seen one of these? These are called the little people. It's named that because of these guys. They're little people. They have their own little song, their own little world, and they have videos and everything. They're really great. She loves just hitting the button and watching the people spin round and round. And she loves sucking on their heads. But there's also a little song that goes on while these people are spinning around that I'd like to play for you. And some of you guys probably know the song and you've seen it on the videos. Feel free to sing along. The rest of you, just listen to the words of this song. Let's just meditate on the little people.
We're little people making lots of plans. Little people with helping hands. Little people, we like to work and play. Little people making friends every day.
Okay, I've heard that song a few hundred times. And it gets in your head, isn't it the worst when those are in your head and you start humming it all day, you're out surfing, singing Little People. What are you singing? Little People. You got a problem? Whatever it may be, and it's just in my mind, but the words of that song, as these little people are spinning around, we're little people making lots of plans. We're little people with helping hands, little people, we like to work and play. And I think of that phrase and everything else in this passage in James, and I just think, man, that's just totally us. We're like these little people, and we have all these things and all these plans. We're making all these plans, and we just go on. And the truth is what if one of these little people, let's say they were real little people, and one of them, rather than just getting involved in his own life, every once in a while, she looks up at me, okay, sitting above her little people land and says, hey, can you make me spin faster than the rest of them? Yeah, I can do that. Or if she would just look to me for help and consider, wow, you know what, maybe I should not just look at all these affairs and go busy spinning around my own little world and maybe look up at someone who's bigger than me. The possibility that maybe I can actually help you in life. And maybe you would be going a lot faster than everyone else on that little world of yours if you look to me for help. But instead, it's like we just want to go about in our own little world as these little people do our own little affairs rather than looking up at God, who's in control of our little land, our little world. Yeah, that passage says, why do you sit here and you fight with each other and you claw and scratch for these different things? You're pursuing all this stuff and you're not even asking the one who's sitting above the vault of the earth. And its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, it says in Isaiah 40. It goes on in that passage in James 4, and at the end of that chapter, in verse 13, he says, now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we'll go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, make money, why, you don't even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it's the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast and brag. All such boasting is evil. he says, after he's talking about prayer, he says, okay, come on, you guys he says, come now, you who say, well, this year I'm going to go to this city, I'm going to make this amount of money. As many of us in this room are doing already, saying, okay, this year, 2003, I've got this position and this job, we should have this type of income. And the Bible says, come on, are you kidding me? He says, you don't know what your life's going to be like tomorrow. I mean, you're making these plans. You're these little people making lots of plans. Oh, I got this year planned out. I know what I'm going to do, with my house, with my job, with my car, with my family, with this, with that. He goes, you don't know what you're going to do tomorrow. You don't know if you have tomorrow. He goes, you've got this life, and it's a vapor. It's here one day, and then it's gone. Instead, you ought to say, wait, if it's the Lord's will, if God allows me to live, then I will live and do this and that, if He allows. I mean, see how foolish it is? Like if this guy says, I'm going to go around in a circle 5 times. I am going to go around in a circle 5 times. Not if I don't want you to. It's just silly. It's silly to not acknowledge the one that's up there. To just say, no, this is what I'm going to do. He says that type of boasting is evil. He goes, when we down here make our plans outside of God, he goes, that is total arrogance. And that is evil. Just to say, this is what I'm going to do for the year, and not acknowledge the one up there who's in control of everything. He says, your life's a vapor. Who in this room is going to live through 2003? I mean, how many would dare and say, I will? No, you say, if the Lord wills, I'll live through 2003. I wouldn't dare make a statement like, oh yeah, watch me. I'll live through 2003. I was talking to Todd Anderson a couple days ago. You guys know Todd. I brought him up a few weeks ago, who has cancer and is, went through chemo, and it's done nothing, and the tumors are growing still, and he's going to try something else. But he made a comment, just great attitude about everything, but he says, life sure is different when someone hands you a stopwatch. He just kind of said it in passing, but I just stopped and I thought, he just says, you just don't know what it's like until someone hands you a stopwatch and says, here's what you got left. And just the whole thought of, man, my life is a vapor. What if the stopwatch ended this year for me? I don't know that. It's all up to Him. And why is it then that I go out and I try to carry on my affairs and try to do everything like I'm in control, like I can do it by myself? And how much better would my life have been this past year had I spent an extra half hour a day praying? Would you have regretted that? Let's say you look back at 2002. Let's say you had spent an extra half hour over what you had done in prayer, and you cut something else out. You really think you'd be sitting here right now with regrets over that time spent in prayer? And yet I'm willing to bet many of you regret not spending that extra half hour a day in prayer over the last year. It's like, what do we do? We're just going to keep the cycle going and just live our life regretting every year, saying, gosh, why didn't I? Why didn't I? Why didn't I? I'm not trying to make plans